This is a Fox News alert. I'm Marianne Rafferty live in Los Angeles. Right now, a manhunt is underway in California after a deadly mass shooting.
Gang shooting. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here, the one and only truth pimp, dealing you a vulgar display of logic and reason on a daily basis. Friends, if you really want to catch a shooter who got away from a multi-casualty shooting, you have to approach it the correct way, because the words you use in terms of the media and even some of the local people in press conferences can change the direction of an investigation, especially if you have some idiots who are actually in charge of the investigation itself. First, guys, please go check out my friends CMMG. They have a brand new line of zeroed brand suppressors that they are releasing. These suppressors offer impressive sound suppression. They're very ruggedly built, and trust me, they are at a very affordable price. They're calling these the everyman suppressor, meaning that they are at a price point where they expect most everybody, every man at least, if you still know what men are, to be able to afford one. These suppressors are built in-house in America, in Missouri, at the CMMG plant. They're made with 17-4 stainless steel, and they feature a durable tubeless design, laser welded baffle stacks, and easy to clean nitride finish. Check them out. Go to cmmg. Again, cmmg. Don't forget to use my code FTATF and you will get 10% off these unbelievable suppressors along with anything else from CMMG. Again, FTATF is the discount code. So let's talk about this Stockton shooting and some of the details. First, here are the facts, and these are the real facts, not some lazy headline from some of the mainstream medias. The shooting happened around 6 p.m. at a child's birthday party inside a banquet hall on Lucille Avenue in Stockton. Between 100 and 150 people were inside. 4 people were shot, including 3 kids, ages 8, 9, and 14. Imagine that. Celebrating somebody's birthday. A 21-year-old, also identified as Susana Archuleta, was also killed. At least 11 more were injured, possibly as many as 14 or 15, depending on which update you check. And of course, people don't talk when it's a gang shooting. Nobody wants to be the, quote, rat. Gunfire started inside, spilled outside, and investigators believe multiple shooters were involved. There again, indicating it's not a mass shooting. And here's the kicker. No arrests. Still, days later, no arrests. That alone tells me. I mean, I've literally written books on it. Quote, mass shooters, which I like to call rampage shooters. They are willing to die and sometimes want to die during their act, during their shooting. They are trying to randomly shoot as many people as possible. Sometimes they will target someone who maybe has done something to them in the past, but usually it's to amass a high body count. They don't care who it is. They just want a lot of people. And again, they approach it completely different, and they don't intend to get away. That was never their intention. In fact, if they don't get shot, they usually calmly give up and surrender. But don't worry, the media has it all figured out. They slapped on their favorite clickbait phrase, mass shooting at child's birthday party. Because if you call it a mass shooting, you don't have to think. You don't have to do any investigative journalism. You just get the instant emotions, the instant outrage, the instant political talking points, and all the clicks. They're going to watch your stuff because you hooked them in with the title. But here's the problem, and it's a big one. Calling this a mass shooting is wrong. It's irresponsible, and it absolutely, in many cases, will wreck the investigation, at least at its most critical point, which is within the first 48 hours of the actual incident. Thankfully, most law enforcement investigators and detectives are a little bit smarter than the people who sit behind the desk and regurgitate what they're told to say. There are investigators out there who are not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Let's be real clear about that. Not every person who's a detective and an investigator is super sharp. So when you tell them what you say the shooting is without doing any investigation, you could be hurting their initial point of the investigation. And again, the first 48 hours is the most critical. That data collection, data gathering at the scene, and trying to look at all your facts and information, witness statements and all that at the very outset of what just happened, that's your most critical time. But if you send that investigator on the wrong path, You're wasting valuable time. Let me tell you why this matters. Mass shooters are almost always lone individuals, practically every single one. You probably have Columbine, which really you had one sociopath there, but really it was one person who initiated the whole thing. He had a follower. They choose random targets. They're not looking for a specific group of people. They try to kill as many people as possible. So they don't care about who it is. They care about how many there are. They're usually suicidal or they surrender, as I stated before. And they're motivated by some form of weird ideology, grievance that they might have with a certain group, or just a complete mental collapse. Now, does any of that sound like a gangbanger? A guy in a wannabe gangbanger, whichever. A guy in a group in a Democrat-run city with high crime who just shoots people. What I just showed you, does that describe what you envision as a gangster with a Glock switch? I know it doesn't. I'll answer the question for you, especially those of you out there who disagree with me. Yeah, that's not the definition. Let me tell you how you can describe what I call properly a confrontational shooter or a gang shooter. They target specific rivals, like in this case. They are not trying to kill random children, but they don't mind doing it if they're with the people they're shooting at, like in this case. They're shooting at specific people they know, like in this case. They flee quickly. They don't want to die, and they sure don't want to get caught, like in this case. And it's often part of a cycle of retaliation, which I'm sure you're going to find out is the case in this shooting. These two types of shootings are not the same type of crime. There's different psychological approaches, different motives. It's certainly going to require different investigative approaches. So if the media really doesn't care about anything else but clicks, maybe just for a minute, you care about a little bit of justice for this 8, 9, and 14-year-old children, these 8, 9, and 14-year-old children who were shot and killed at this birthday party. So if you could maybe just once help us out and call it the right thing to maybe give a little bit of, I guess, less of a speed bump to the actual investigators. Because when you call it that, had you called it a gang shooting, they probably already assume that, but at least you're not slowing them down to confirm and redirect, hey, was this some kind of a random thing or was this targeted? So you're not helping anything, is my point, by trying to throw this buzzword out there that's going to get you a few clicks. Let me tell you how mislabeling will screw up an investigation. When you call a targeted shooting a mass shooting, you literally change what detectives would look for. Now, to be clear, I don't think, as I stated earlier, many detectives are dumb enough to rely on the media to give them all their investigation, but they certainly get information from the media. Because in a lot of cases, especially in bigger communities that have their own, say, journalists, if you want to call them that, but local affiliates, they'll go out and get good detail from. That's why if I do a live stream at a quote mass shooting, I'm usually going to pull from local affiliates, not the big guys, like the big media guys. I'm not going to pull from NBC in, New York. I'm going to pull from NBC in the small community where it happened, a little affiliate, because they got boots on the ground. They're getting actual information. Now that I think is very helpful, because they usually get really good raw information that you can use. It has not been manipulated by the media yet. By the time it leaves that small community and makes its way to New York City, where the big guys get it, it's been fondled, fingered, and molested the whole way through, and it's not going to have the same look that it had when it left that boots-on-the-ground journalist. Regarding a mass shooting, a random shooting, right? Investigators will ask, where's the manifesto? What mental break triggered this? Did he post suicidal messages? Was he radicalized online? Do they ever ask those things when it comes to gang shootings? Have you ever heard, like this Stockton shooting, law enforcement go, did it have a manifesto? Like never, they ask that. Because they know there's not a manifesto. They know that because it's two different types of shootings. The motive matters. But a gang-related investigator is going to ask, who had beef with who? Who was at the party? Which crews are active in this neighborhood? Who posted threats on Instagram or Snapchat or videos? Who just got out of jail? Yeah, if Pookie just got out of jail It's probably not some random mass shooting that some sociopath pulled off. It's Pookie, or related to Pookie. If you start asking the wrong questions, you chase the wrong leads. Guess what? Your first 48 hours are garbage when you're chasing the wrong leads. That is how shootings go unsolved. That is how shooters stay on the street. And that is how retaliation shootings happen. So let's assume our investigators in this case are sharp enough to know it's a gang shooting. It's not a mass shooting or a rampage shooting. It's a gang shooting. You know who else it affects during the part of the investigation, especially at an early stage like this? The community. They react differently depending on which one it is. If you say a shooting like this is a mass shooting, witnesses will think that it's random. They will think that they know nothing because it was just some random psychopath or sociopath. They're going to stay quiet. They're not going to tell you anything. But if you say that it was a targeted attack or a gang attack, suddenly and quietly usually and anonymously, people will start talking. In community-driven violence, people know who's beefing with who's in what crew, who's been threatening who had problems with who at that particular birthday party. The label literally determines whether or not you're going to have witnesses lining up. Now, again, I understand a lot of witnesses either aren't going to talk because they're afraid of retaliation themselves from those same gang members, or they're going to speak anonymously. But a lot of them will speak. It may be a sprinkling of people, but there are one or two good people in these communities. And if they do know something, they're more likely to come forward. But again, if you tell them the wrong thing took place, well, they're thinking the media wouldn't lie to me. The media wouldn't give me bad information. So they stay tight-lipped about it. So let me be clear. Calling this a mass shooting is not only irresponsible, it's reckless and it's dangerous. It distorts the motive, it misleads the public, and can absolutely derail the full investigation. This wasn't some grocery store rampage shooter. This wasn't some church shooter who had had issues with the priest in the past. This was not some random school shooting. This was a confrontational, targeted attack, a very different thing with a very different behavioral pattern. Until the media actually grows a spine and starts reporting these things honestly and accurately, I don't see a lot changing, because the people who are calling the shots behind the scenes are certainly controlling the narrative right now. Because let's face it, the media doesn't want to be wrong unless there's something in it for them. You follow what I'm saying? I mean, if they had nothing to gain, they would tell you what it was. They would say, well, guys, another gang shooting. And they would have disdain for it. They can't say that. They just can't say that, because politicians, failed community leaders, all these people who are horrible at their jobs, pulling in a local paycheck but doing nothing to curb crime. It's easier to blame something that you can't control, like guns. It's easier to say this is gun violence because you know nothing can really be done about it, because in your mind, you know you suck at your job and you know it had nothing to do with the gun. These people play stupid, but they're not that stupid. They know that the human mind decided to take another life, and then it chose a gun to do it. These gang members did not sit around in a room with cotton candy and cake on the table and just having a good old time, and then all of a sudden somebody brought a couple of guns in, laid them on the table, and they went, let's go shoot up a birthday party. That's not how it happens. They know who's at the birthday party. They decide to go shoot up the birthday party, then they collect their guns. But these local politicians who are horrible failures, they can't possibly call it what it is, because they'll lose votes, of course. They'll lose any kind of support they have in the community, because they're big dogs, right? You know, crabs in a bucket. These guys go into these communities and realize that they're 3 or 4 IQ points ahead of most of the other dummies in these communities, and they rise to the top, wear their gold-rimmed glasses and strut around town. That's the city councilman right there. That's the mayor. Everybody's all impressed because he's got a title now. Everybody else just a bunch of dummies. Those people would lose that. They would lose their influence in the community. They would lose their protection in the community. Let's face it, their own protection. If they spoke the truth, in many cases, all of that violence would turn onto them because they'd be calling out people who live a couple of blocks from them. Although they are more protected, they certainly would be calling out people who live in their communities, and they won't do that. They're cowards. They're absolutely cowards. Most of these communities, these leaders out there who are failing at their jobs, they're not gun guys. So they have none of their own protection. So they're already, by default, scared. So they certainly don't want to call these people out. These are the last people that they want to upset, because the front of their house, at least at the top, is likely going to get riddled by a Glock switch that's out of control and shoots the trees in the top of the eaves and the rooftops. But still, it's dangerous. And these loser local leaders do not want to even come close to crossing that line. Guys, stay armed, stay informed, stay leery of these stupid headlines that you read, because most of them are lies. If you like the video, please let me know. Comment down below. Do you think I'm wrong about this? Is this just some random shooting that we should approach everyone the same way? Or do you think we gain a little bit of time and accuracy whenever we look at the actual facts and determine what is what on the front end of it, and give detectives and investigators actually a little bit of a head start instead of a massive speed bump that they have to figure out and maneuver around because the media is throwing lies at them the whole time? Don't forget, guys, if you're looking for a book to educate yourself and to educate the idiots out there who can't think for themselves regarding mass shootings, go to damnliars.net. Again, damnliars.net, and get my brand new book, Damn Liars.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
It's hanging around.